one of the most difficult aspects, I think, to relate to as a human being of that aspect soul is the consciousness, the aspect of what is consciousness. And somewhere down you learn or read or hear that the consciousness is made up of the overall consciousness of all body cells, even every atom that we consist of. And that, to me, that image to me gives me such an impression of the captivity of our soul, because if I eat something or assimilate something, breathe something in, whatever I do, I take in atoms. So whatever I take in, it determines directly, because I end up consisting of these atoms, unless I breathe them out again, that they determine my consciousness. If you really elaborate on that, reflect on that, then you understand, how complete our captivity in this world is, of our soul in this world is, and that there's no other option than to really change yourself down to the bottom even of your atoms. At least if you think in the same line of thinking, then you see, wow, that is really some process. If you look at the soul from that perspective, that one perspective only, to the fact that we state, but we have to build or give way to a new soul and a new consciousness.
It's also interesting when you think about it in that way, that at the same time that you have that seemingly infinite bond with the natural, the atomic structure and the consciousness of it, there's also in every element, every atom, the divine potential, so I think that maybe, does that get us back to the discussion about consciousness in the sense of that transition from the four states of consciousness, which I think is sometimes described as Herod, John, Jesus, and Christ, and that process that we undergo to turn around our consciousness, to change our state of consciousness.
Shall we then continue? And we were saying in what we're exchanging that consciousness is one of the 5 factors of the soul, of the natural soul. And where do we have the seat? Where are the headquarters? Where are the steering mechanisms of our state of soul being? Where are those levels of consciousness? And yesterday in our webinar, we talked of those 3 states or 3 pinpointed areas of consciousness, in our head sanctuary, as it is called, in our heart sanctuary, and in our pelvic sanctuary. So those energies, the 4 other energies, are working through those focal points in our body, because they're linked also to the chakra system, to the 7 chakra, which are divided out into the 49 plexi circles, which then influence the whole of our being. So our consciousness today can express itself mentally, intellectually, by thinking. That's one level of consciousness. By our emotions, by our desires, which is another level of consciousness, more from the heart, and by our actions, by our activities, by our impulses, by our instincts of the I being, of course, always instincts of the I being, of self-protection, which is in the pelvic sanctuary. So Tanya was saying, well, this is our imprisonment. It is our imprisonment, it is our prison, from the moment when we feel that it is a prison. But for most people, maybe it isn't a prison. It is to find the way in which to manipulate all these activities, not knowing that they are being manipulated by the ego, by the lower self, and manipulated by the oral being. And because it's oral, it means in the astral self, the higher self. So trying to find liberation in all of that is a dire task. And in fact, psychologically, also materially, in terms of our state of composition, impossible, because we are living in a closed system. And this is the wonder of it, that when we talk of the personality, we say that it can become an instrument. It's either an instrument of the ego, of the selfishness, of the egocentricity. I'm sort of stressing those words because you find in them the expression exactly of the I being, the animal being that people are, that we are, working for ourselves, for our own elevation, for our own liberation, for our own spiritual liberation even, but still completely enclosed. Yet that personality aspires to the truth, aspires to light, aspires to liberation, aspires to many of these elements, which, as Jose was saying, the ego has no understanding of that. It's not interested, doesn't even know about eternity. But we as a personality speak of the eternity, because then we need to introduce the fifth element, the new element, which is not just the ego, the personality, the higher self, and the monad, but the geometric center of our being, which is the spirit spark atom. So it is an atom which is not related at all to our atomic structure. And it is a spark, and it is of the spirit. So it doesn't belong to our conception, our universe at all. But it is there. It is in the geometric center, and the whole of religious, philosophical, in the deeper sense of the word, traditions speak of that center, that central point, which we in the Golden Rosy Cross talk about the rose. And that rose vibrates, that rose gives out energy, gives out strength, which then the ego feels as a threat, while the personality picks it up in terms of aspiration to the light, to truth, to liberation, and so on and so on. It's not because that personality aspires to it, it's because it's reflecting the force and energy of infinity that is to be found in the very center of our being. So into the four square that I have tried to build and to describe, and we're building together, I've introduced this fifth element, and that fifth element, which is of the spirit. It is an atom, but is not an atom which is influenced at this moment in time by the five-fold soul. Okay, it's not influenced by that, because it is free of that, because it is linked directly to infinity. And our personality is not responding to that presence as yet, except through images, except through the ideas of light, of truth, of liberation, and so on.